The Magic of Thinking Big, written by David Schwartz. This is the third part of Chapter 1. Believe you can succeed, and you will. Several years ago, after addressing a group of businessmen in Detroit, I talked with one of the gentlemen who approached me. Can you spare me a few minutes? I'd like very much to discuss a personal experience with you. In a few minutes, we were comfortably seated in a coffee shop, waiting for some refreshments. I have a personal experience, he began, that ties in perfectly with what you said this evening about making your mind work for you, instead of letting it work against you. I've never explained to anyone how I lifted myself out of the world of mediocrity, but I'd like to tell you about it. And I'd like to hear it, I said. Well, just 5 years ago, I was plodding along, just another guy working in the tool and die trade. I made a decent living by average standards, but it was far from ideal. Our home was much too small, and there was no money for those many things we wanted. My wife, bless her, didn't complain much, but it was written all over her that she was more resigned to her fate than she was happy. Inside, I grew more and more dissatisfied. When I let myself see how I was failing my good wife and 2 children, I really hurt inside. But today, things are really different, my friend continued. Today, we have a beautiful new home on a 2-acre lot and a year-round cabin a couple 100 miles north of here. There's no more worry about whether we can send the kids to a good college, and my wife no longer has to feel guilty every time she spends money for some new clothes. Next summer, the whole family is flying to Europe to spend a month's holiday. We're really living. How did this all happen? I asked. It all happened, he continued, when, to use the phrase you used tonight, I harnessed the power of belief. 5 years ago, I learned about a job with a tool and die company here in Detroit. We were living in Cleveland at the time. I decided to look into it, hoping I could make a little more money. I got here early on Sunday evening, but the interview was not until Monday. After dinner, I sat down in my hotel room, and for some reason, I got really disgusted with myself. Why? I asked myself. Why am I just a middle-class failure? Why am I trying to get a job that represents such a small step forward? I don't know to this day what prompted me to do it, but I took a sheet of hotel stationery and wrote down the names of 5 people that I've known well for several years who had far surpassed me in earning power and job responsibility. 2 were former neighbors who had moved away to find subdivisions. 2 others were fellows I had worked for, and the third was a brother-in-law. Next, again, I don't know what made me do this. I asked myself, what do my 5 friends have that I don't have, besides better jobs? I compared myself with them on intelligence, but I honestly couldn't see that they excelled in the brains department, nor could I truthfully say they had me beat on education, integrity, or personal habits. Finally, I got down to another success quality one hears a lot about: initiative. Here, I hated to admit it, but I had to. On this point, my record showed I was far below that of my successful friends. It was about 3 a.m., but my mind was astonishingly clear. I was seeing my weak point for the first time. I discovered that I had held back. I had always carried a little stick. I dug into myself deeper and deeper and found the reason I lacked initiative was because I didn't believe inside that I was worth very much. I sat there the rest of the night, just reviewing how lack of faith in myself had dominated me ever since I could remember, how I had used my mind to work against myself. I found I had been preaching myself why I couldn't get ahead instead of why I could. I had been selling myself short. I found this streak of self-depreciation showed through in everything I did. Then it dawned on me that no one else was going to believe in me until I believed in myself. Right then, I decided I'm through feeling second class. From here on in, I'm not going to sell myself short. Next morning, I still had that confidence. During the job interview, I gave my newfound confidence its first test. Before coming for the interview, I'd hoped I would have courage to ask for $750, or maybe even $1,000 more than my present job was paying. But now, after realizing I was a valuable man, I upped it to $3,500, and I got it. I sold myself because after that one long night of self-analysis, I found things in myself that made me a lot more saleable. Within 2 years after I took that job, I had established a reputation as the fellow who can get business. Then we went into a recession. This made me still more valuable because I was one of the best business getters in the industry. The company was reorganized, and I was given a substantial amount of stock, plus a lot more pay. Believe in yourself, and good things do start happening. End of the third part of Chapter 1.